Welcome to another episode, everyone. This is a story of a young Crip dude who was out on the streets wilding out. Got into it with Snoop Dogg. Drove up and down his street harassing him. Now, this individual had been shot up already but survived the brutal attack. But then, when Snoop Dogg moved near his neighborhood, he didn't necessarily want Snoop Dogg in the neighborhood and started making efforts to get Snoop Dogg out of the hood. And then things turned tragic when this young man ended up being shot again, but this time he did not survive. This is Boys in the Hood TV.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Lil Smooth from the By Yourself Crips, who was shot and killed in 1993. Lil Smooth, born Philip Woodamariam in 1973, and he will be raised in Eritrea, Africa. Now, at the age of 5, he will suffer from diabetes, but due to the economy, insulin at the time was very scarce. But eventually, by the age of 6, his mother and father would pack up and flee Africa and move to America. But initially, they would move to Idaho before settling in Long Beach, California in 1980. Now, Philip would attend school at the Palms Elementary in West Los Angeles. Now, he would later go on to attend Palms Junior High, where he would discover his love for basketball. He would join the team and play from grades 6 to 7. But even with his love for sports, his father's number one rule was that education was extremely important in that household. Now later on, Philip would attend Hamilton High School, where he would continue to play basketball his freshman year. Now from time to time, he would miss school due to his diabetes. Now around this time, gang violence in Los Angeles had reached a new height, and Hamilton High School would also be affected by gang violence. Now gangs like Schoolyard Crips, Playboy Gangsta Crips, Blast and Fool Crips, and many other hoods will go to this school. And this would lead to fights, shootings, stabbings between rival gangs, and also issues between Black and Latinos at the time. And with all this going on, Philip will get put on to the By Yourself Hustler Crips, and he will start going by Lil Smooth. Now the By Yourself Hustlers has multiple sets throughout West LA, and at the time, they had hoods in Palms and Miracle Mile. But Smooth would have very close ties to the Vinton Avenue clique. Now as time went on, Smooth would eventually drop out of high school due to health reasons, but also he had just started running the streets heavily. But even while in the streets, his father was able to get him to start working for him at the family construction company business, delivering materials to different companies. But by 1989, Smooth would have his first run-in with the LAPD, and he would be bitten by a canine dog and had to be treated at the hospital. But his bad behavior would not stop there, it would only continue. And not only that, Smooth will completely stop taking his diabetic medication, and he would start to develop mood swings and being very irritable. And this would lead to a call to CPS, and Smooth will be removed from his parents' household and placed into foster care for a few months. Now the following year in 1990, a 17-year-old Lil Smooth will be arrested and this time sent to juvie. And at this point, his family was struggling. But once he served his sentence, he would get out at the age of 18. Now, once out, his home life was completely different because at the time, his mother and father were living separately, with his father working out in Arizona and his mother now staying in Northern California. Now, this
So we can at least get an idea of why this individual began to wild out, because he began to struggle some and started getting into a lot of trouble out there on the street. But a lot of this stuff originates from childhood. His father's not in the home anymore, even though apparently his father is in his life, but perhaps the father and the mother broke up, but he was put in foster care for some months. Stopped taking his diabetic medication, started to experience mood swings because of this. Well, yeah, if no one is really checking on this individual and making sure that he's being taken care of, with his medication and all, and whatever mental health struggles he may have. And particularly at this time, people were not checking for you like that with the mental health struggle. It was more taboo. So who knows what the young man was going through, because if he was 17 at this time, then he was only about 20 years old then when he was shot and killed.
Your home would lead to Smooth to start politicking in the hood heavy in the Palms area. And not only that, he would start toting a pistol everywhere he went. Now, Smooth was known for not backing down from any type of confrontation. And this type of mentality will lead to him being shot multiple times. Now, his wounds wouldn't be fatal, but he eventually will recover. Now, by 1992, gang violence would really start to heat up all over the city, and murders had become an everyday, regular occurrence in the city of LA. Now, by February 1992, Lil Smooth would be arrested for being in possession of a loaded firearm after trying to skip out on paying the bus fare. Now, he would plead no contest and eventually get 1 year probation. But just only a few months later, Smooth would be kicking it with his homie at Woodbine Park and get into an altercation. Now, during this altercation, Smooth would try to take a gun from another man, and in the process, he will be shot twice in his legs. He will be immediately rushed to UCLA Medical Center, where he would survive these injuries. But even with being shot on 2 different occasions, this would not deter Smooth from the gang life. Now, in October 1992, Smooth and his homies will be playing basketball at Palm.
Deter him from the gang life, and that's how it happens often. I was shot as well at the age of 12 years old with a 12 gauge shotgun, extremely close range, and it did not deter me from the streets either. Perhaps added to my street persona and kept me in the streets, angry, upset, seeking revenge, perhaps even feeling invincible since I had not died from my wounds. So individuals, you'll find this often in the culture, individuals getting shot, beat to a pulp, stabbed, put in prison for many years, and still continue on with the same lifestyle, feeling like they've given the life so much. Now, with these injuries and everything else, that there's no need to stop now, that it is somehow cowardice if they get out of the streets once they've incurred these sort of injuries. It is not. Once you've been shot up on multiple occasions, even one occasion, with one bullet, it's time to let it go. You survived. You were able to maintain your life. Many people are not. Even with one shot, with one wound, they're not able to survive. So you were able to survive. It's time to get the hell out of the way.
Junior high. But things would escalate when a rival hood would show up and Smooth would get into a shootout with him. Now, not long after this shooting, he would be arrested for discharging a firearm with gross negligence. This would lead to him spending a few months in jail, but ultimately, he would get probation. With Smooth still refusing to take his medication, he would start to lose a lot of weight and start suffering from seizures and having headaches. But even with all his medical problems, his brother, who had stayed in New Mexico at the time, wanted to get Smooth away from the street life and invited Smooth to come live with him in New Mexico. So on his 20th birthday, he would go down and visit his brother in New Mexico, who would surprise him with a white 1978 Buick Regal. Now, while down in New Mexico, he, along with his brother, would discuss Smooth enrolling back into school to get his diploma. And with all this talk and new inspiration, Smooth has seemed excited about the possibility of getting his life back on track. But once he got back home to LA, he would find himself right back into the mix in the hood with his homies. Now, the summer of 1993, Rolling 20's Crip, Snoop Dogg, who was working on his debut album, would move into the Palms area. Now, with Snoop living in this area, he would attract a lot of attention and get a lot of love. But on the flip side, not everybody was happy that Snoop had moved into the set. And Smooth would be one of those people that wasn't exactly happy about it. Now, a lot of people said that Smooth would roll up and down the block where Snoop lived at, taunting and trolling Snoop and his people every chance that he got. But at that point in time, things never escalated beyond words. But sadly for Lil Smooth, this aggressive behavior would eventually cost him. Now, early in the summer, Smooth would get arrested on a DUI and a reckless driving charge and have to spend a few months in county. But eventually by August, he would be released. On August 25th, 1993, Smooth, along with some other Crips, would head up to Woodbine Park to go get some food and buy some weed. Now, while driving down the block, Smooth would spot one of Snoop's homie, Sean Abrams, along with the other few individuals standing outside of Snoop's apartment, talking near a vehicle. Smooth would then lean out the window and start throwing up his hood while hanging out the passenger window. Now, both groups would get into a heated exchange, and that's when Smooth would pull out a .380 and point it at him. But once he did this, his homeboy would then pull off and drive down the block. Now, Smooth and his homeboys would continue to Woodbine Park. But 20 minutes later, Snoop and his bodyguard and another one of his homies would come driving down the street past Woodbine Park. That's when one of Smooth's homies named Joseph would flag them down and Snoop would pull the car over. He would then approach Snoop's car and apologize immediately to Snoop about how Smooth was tripping and that he didn't mean any harm. But only seconds later, Smooth would then run up and his homie Joseph would try to grab him, but Smooth would then shove him away and start talking aggressively to Snoop them while walking towards the vehicle. Now, as the argument continued to escalate, that's when Smooth would lift up his shirt and flash his 380, and out of nowhere, Snoop's bodyguard named Malik opened fire. Malik would let off a total of 6 shots. Smooth would attempt to try to run, but he would be hit in his hip and upper back. Now, although injured, he would continue to run to a nearby alley, and only seconds later, he would collapse on the ground. Now, 911 would be called, and police and EMTs would arrive not long after.
Damn. Wow. Yeah, he was aggressive, man. He was looking for it. He was asking for it, really. I mean, I hate to say that. I hate to hear this, man, but you know, you pull out a weapon, you don't use it. You just pull it out and point it at them and then keep going and head to a park. Okay. You're at the park chilling. They're still not tripping. It's not like they came up looking for you, even though you just drew down a weapon upon them, threatening them with the weapon. Just the fact that you're pulling out the weapon, pointing at them, means that you're threatening them, threatening their lives. The weapon could have went off anything. And then your homeboy comes up to the car when they flagged the car down. Snoop and them probably didn't even know they was there at the park or whatever. They hadn't followed them. They flagged the car down. Someone flagged the car down. Snoop and them, oh, what's up? Stop. Oh, man, we apologize. I apologize for my homie tripping. You know, drawing down that weapon on y'all. Okay, man, it's all good. But of course, Snoop is not there without some sort of protection, without his bodyguard that's going to have a weapon on him at that time. Particularly after you just drew down a weapon on them, yeah, they're going to be riding around with a weapon to protect themselves at this juncture. And then you come into the car pushing your homeboy at the way. Why are you doing all this if you're not about to do anything? If you're not willing to do anything, if you're not ready to do anything, if you're not serious about doing anything, evidently you're not serious because you just drew your weapon in the car and your homeboy pulled off, before you had a chance to shoot? No, you had a chance. And now you're walking up to the car and lifting up your shirt, showing them your weapon. What you think there's 3 dudes in the car? It's Snoop Dogg, even though he's not big and famous and rich or whatever at the time, but he's still, on his way. Whatever. Anyone. They at this time in LA, Long Beach, and even now, they have weapons. They have weapons on them. Particularly after you just drew down a weapon. So now you come lifting up your shirt and you got a weapon right there, but apparently you don't plan on using it. You ain't pulling it out and use it. You just showing them that you got one. Now this self-defense, of course. You just showed them a weapon, just threatened them with a weapon earlier. Now you're showing them a weapon. His bodyguard pull out and draw down and squeeze. Ain't nothing gonna happen to them.
Lil Smooth would then be rushed and transported to a nearby hospital, and sadly, he will be pronounced dead at the age of 20 years old. Now, only 1 day later, Snoop and his bodyguard Malik would then turn themselves in to the LAPD, and both men will be charged with first-degree murder. Now, during the preliminary trial, Smooth's family would be extremely upset over the entire ordeal and how the defense would try to paint their son.
We are completely surprised about the justice system in this country, really.
It happened in this Los Angeles park. Snoop's bodyguard shot and killed Philip Waldemariam. Snoop didn't pull the trigger, but he, the bodyguard, and a third man were all charged with murder because prosecutors say they hunted down Waldemariam after an earlier argument.
But by February 1996, both Snoop and his bodyguard would be found not guilty of all charges.
We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187. We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, Calvin Brodus, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all.
Wow. That's what Snoop Dogg was in there for that damn murder. I never knew what the story was exactly. Tell you the truth. Damn, that's crazy. That's the murder that he beat. 1993, I do remember that. Wow, I do remember his bodyguard being on trial. Whoa. So the family said that, they hunted him down. This dude came, drew down on him, that they jumped in the car and hunted him down. So Apparently that was Snoop Dogg's story, or his bodyguard and whomever else, his defense, that they were flagged down and that the dude came up on him and lifted up his shirt. So they had no choice but to shoot. Apparently someone else said, nah, they came and hunted him down, saw him and gunned him down. He was shot in the back and in the hip and all of that, but they charged him with murder, as we can see, as we saw that. But they beat it. Rest in peace to that young man, though. 20 years old, lost his life. Either way, 20 years old. But you have to be careful. Don't be going around drawing weapons. And even if they hunted him down, I don't know what the hell happened. He was found not guilty. But even if they hunted him down, then he still should have been prepared. You got a weapon, and you just drew it down. But he's 20 years old. That's why these young dudes, man, get out of the street. Do not do things that are life-changing and life-altering forever. Shout out to Boys in the Hood TV. Rest in peace to that brother. Stay safe and stay free. Whoa.